Welcome to the Empowering Choices podcast. My name is Joshua.
I'm Lucas.
And I'm Eric.
And today we're going to do a part 2 of Mean What You Say and Say What You Mean. And my understanding is we're going to talk more about like positive things. And the previous one, we kind of talked a little bit more about, you know, when you're trying to corral a child and you're saying, if you do this one more time, I'm going to whatever. But now we're talking about more like
Yosemite Sam or something when
Yes.
you do that.
Now we're talking more like, if you do this, I'm going to buy you something or give you something, or if you get good grades, we're going to go to Disney World.
Well, and that's what I was thinking of when we had this topic. I'm like, this topic has two sides.
Right.
You can, you know, mess up on the consequences promises.
Yep.
And you can also mess up on the like positive benefit promises.
Right.
And we really kind of drifted into the discipline area in the last place that we were talking. But like Eric, you literally had a client that like they promised their child a trip to Disneyland if they achieved all A's. And there was definitely a sense of they did not mean what they said when that came out of their mouth.
Disneyland didn't happen.
Ooh.
They did get A's.
Yikes.
But Disneyland did not happen, which means the next time you get into that place and your child is struggling, you know, or not caring about their grades, they're not going to believe any promise that you give them. You know, it may not be just the very next time, but, you know, a couple times down and your promises aren't going to mean anything.
Well, and like in your story, I'm remembering that like the parent said that thinking that there was no, they said it because they thought there was no way that the child could ever pull it off.
Yes.
And then the child went, I'll show you.
Yep.
And I freaking want to go to Disneyland.
Yeah, that became a huge motivator, an external motivator. You know, and anytime you think that your kids can't pull something off is about the time they're going to show you they absolutely will. And
Like achieving all A's.
like achieving
Like
all
there's
A's.
some kids that you would, based on their academic history, go, there ain't no way. But I mean, you know, you promise them Disneyland. Sometimes they can pull it out of a hat.
They can. My freshman year, we had photography class, and our cameras were our passes, and they were our passes in the hallways. They were our passes off campus. They were our passes to, oh, wait, there's McDonald's.
You can say you didn't do anything devious with that, did you?
Not a bit, but our
nice
our
pass.
first, well, yeah, and our first assignment was taking pictures of children. Well, McDonald's has, you know, a play area. You know, and so that
And
was
French fries, it turns out.
Yes, but you know, at the time when we
Hamburglar.
went during the day, the kids were also in school. So for 16 weeks, we went to McDonald's to try and find the children.
You're doing...
So you never accomplished the first assignment because you're like, no, I still got to.
Well, not in 16 weeks. And then when there was only 2 weeks left, and we could either, you know, flunk, sink, or swim, you know, and the teacher's like, you know, I don't know what you're going to do.
Because you hadn't passed assignment 1 yet.
We hadn't done any assignments
hadn't
yet,
done any
you know,
of
and
them.
so, you know, and that's just it, is we know if we don't get these assignments done, we're going to flunk.
Right.
Our parents were on board with, you will be very, very grounded and in trouble.
They didn't even specify to the extent that
didn't
very
know
grounded.
that you will be
You will
very
be
grounded.
very
you know,
grounded.
this was my friend group, all right? And so we all knew we had parents who meant what they said and said what they meant. And so we looked for, what can we do with this? I mean, we came in as soon as school opened, and we stayed until the teacher practically was dragging us out of the classroom going, I have to go home now, which in those days, you know, was like 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And in 2 weeks, we completely finished all of our assignments and got A's in the class. To much of the upsetness of some of our peers who were so pissed off, they almost demanded a strike that we should have been flunked. And so my story is, when you think your kids aren't going to do it, they may surprise you in some really great ways.
Yeah.
So your parents meant what they said. They offered a disciplinary incentive in this scenario.
Correct.
They could have offered if you get an A in this class, despite having, you know, not done anything the whole, you know, I'll buy you a pony.
When I didn't have a lot of interest in grades in, I think it was middle school, my dad instituted, which wasn't very common then, but it is much more common now, money for grades. Mm-hmm. And so every A was $25, every B was $15, every C was $10, every D was $5, and Fs were $25 out of the pot.
Mm-hmm. They were negative 25. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, that will never, ever happen. And in that first semester, I got all A's for the first time in my life, to which my dad was one of those parents going, I never thought he would do this. And
just like our parent from the first example.
Right. And the
mean what you say.
Right. Mm-hmm. The paycheck was pretty good, when you added it all up.
You said it was like $25 an A. So
25. So you got what?
$150 maybe? Depending on how many classes you had?
Yeah, somewhere in there. I never saw that money. And then he discontinued the program.
So did he not mean what he said?
He apparently did not think that I could get it, and so no, did not mean what he said.
Same problem as Disneyland.
Yeah.
Disneyland didn't happen. The $150 didn't happen.
Now, what he was hoping is that I would just engage in the emotions of feeling good and proud about doing well, which did happen.
That's the long-term goal.
That's the long-term goal. But I never would believe my dad again when he tried to create such an incentive program.
Ta-da!
So if you don't want to do it, don't do it. You just have to realize, though, because as I have worked with different kids throughout my career, and I've worked with kids who have had some deep depressions and suicidal ideations and really hard places. One girl, she had never completed a grade since she was in middle school. And I put in, a type of program like that for her, and it worked incredibly. Mm-hmm. I mean, she got all A's. She got a good payout. And then it kept happening, but it only kept happening because that was written into what would be available to assist her with that. Mm-hmm. And so if you're working, especially with foster care or, any level of kids that are not your kids, this can even, be with step parents. If you have a blended family, you're even more so, you have to do what you say. Because if you're not going to, you're going to lose a lot of power and a lot of trust. I mean, that's what this comes down to.
Well, that's one of your fundamental skills when you don't have the biological relationship if you're dealing with foster kids or step kids. I mean, you've got maybe a two-legged stool to start with, and don't blow the legs out of it.
Well, and if you're dealing with foster kids, then you've got now a one-legged stool. Because
I think that's a pogo stick.
Right, of how much they have generally been through. Mm-hmm. And so they need to know someone they can trust, and someone will be able to come through with what they say, because up to this point, they've had a whole lot of adults who didn't mean anything they said. They just said it.
Sure. Yeah. And good, bad, and otherwise.
Right. If you're in the store with your kid and your kid is misbehaving, and you tell your kid, if you don't stop, this is going to be your consequence. But if you do stop, we can stop for ice cream, which is also another consequence.
Yeah, it's just a positive consequence.
It's just a positive consequence. If your kid has seen you do this before, then now they have a decision to make, which actually helps their growth and maturity. They still may keep acting that way and then lose whatever it is they're going to lose at home, plus the ice cream. Mm-hmm. And you can talk about that and they can think about that, versus they change everything and then you go for ice cream on the way home, and you can talk about that and they can think about that as they're enjoying that.
Because you're ultimately attempting to help the child become a responsible human being that makes these positive choices out of the internal principles that they've, been taught.
Exactly.
But your average child can't think much further than the end of their nose. And sometimes they can input ice cream into that small little window that they have.
Exactly.
And you're helping them gain that longer term thought process.
You're helping with brain development.
Right.
All of those pieces help with the further brain development as they go from each stage to the next stage to the next stage. Even though it's not till high school, they're going to get a little better big picture thinking if you've built on that prior to then they have a better footing when that shift begins to come in there to be able to work out of. So they're ahead of the game because of the parenting that you did. And, one of the big pieces that I see in parenting today is kids will just figure it out.
You're almost operating off of the assumption that they have all of the logical thinking capabilities and the long-term planning of an adult, but you're talking to a 5-year-old who doesn't have that skill.
Right. It's almost like taking an animal, a puppy, a kitten into a house, not giving them any of the resources like a cat. You have a cat box. A puppy you have to train a bit, and just leaving them in the house saying, well, they'll figure out where to go to the bathroom. Not in the house.
Right, when you say they'll figure it out all right, it just won't be where you want.
And that's the thing. You're not molding the behavior of the animal to understand what is the best, safest thing as they're now living with a human being and what to do with their bathroom.
Right.
So I've got a question. It seems like some of these promises could be based on a very subjective thing. So say that I say, I'm going to take you out for ice cream if you're on great behavior while we're in the store.
So you're going to take me out for ice cream if I'm on great behavior while we do this podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens if at the end of the podcast, you think you were on great behavior, but I say, well, by my standards, you weren't on great behavior, so we're not going to go out. So I guess my question is, should you be so broad, or do you only need to use this on like things that are very definable?
That's a really
like you
great
get an A or
question.
Okay. Is that another podcast, guys? Do we need to wrap this one up and go again?
That can be, and we can work with that. So just for this little segment, what you need to do is that you need to be specific, because you're going to have that discussion,
right?
Especially if you have strong-willed kids.
Yeah.
Well, I was like this. Well, this is what the standards are. So you need to do this. You need to be like this. You need to do this. You need to be like this.
Yeah.
Did you do all those things? Right. Yes, you did. Yes,
those
I did.
Those are concrete specifics that you need to be communicating.
Right. And then you as the parent go, yeah, you did this one and this one, not these two.
Got it.
That was not inside voice. Okay, so now you know, and tomorrow we can give that another try, and ice cream's still on the table. By the way, I did well. I want my ice cream.
Eric's deciding he earned ice cream.
So basically, you're just saying, make sure that you. So I don't just say, Eric, I need you to be on good behavior for this podcast. Behavior. I say, Eric, today I want you to be on good behavior for the podcast. That means don't get up in the middle of it and go get a snack. Don't, answer your phone. Don't do whatever. And then when we're done with it, I say, well, it looks like you did go get a snack. You did answer your phone. Therefore, you weren't on good behavior. Or it takes something more subjective and gives it specifics.
So as you're raising your child, you're going to run into periods where you're going to say, okay, we don't run in the house.
Yeah.
That's good behavior.
Yeah.
We don't yell in the house. We yell in the yard. So good behavior for the house looks like this. Now when they get to be 7 or 8, you can say, Josh, I need you to be on good behavior for this next hour. And you've already put the time into it. So Josh knows what good behavior is.
Yeah.
Now, when he claims he was on good behavior, you can then have the discussion. These are the 4 things that constitute good behavior. We've been talking about this since you were born.
Right.
Are you really going to tell me that you met all 4 of these? And generally speaking, with your relationships, your child's going to go, no, and I'll do better next time. Or, so it's not that you have to spell it out every single time. It's that as you're engaging in the relationship, it's being spelled out. Just like when they go to school in a classroom, they're going to teach them what is good classroom behavior in the first month.
Yeah.
What is expected by that teacher. In the 6th month, there's no excuse.
Presuming the teacher's been doing a good job.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess I'll practice this as our outro. Eric, you did very good behavior today.
Rocky Road.
I would now take you out for ice
Hot
cream.
fudge.
So So we'll wrap this up and
topping.
We'll do this next time.
We could make it a banana split, really.
We could do that. So if you've enjoyed our silliness, but some really good parenting advice, we have a lot more on our website and on our app. You can go to empoweringchoices.community, or you can search Empowering Choices Parenting in the App Store, and you can find that. And make sure to tell a friend about the app and the podcast, and we will see you on the next episode.